Thanks for your company once again. In 100 days, we have recorded 103 achievements, but we do not also promise to fulfill our campaign promises within 100 days. Those were the words of Vice President Dr. Mahmood Bawumia as he addressed the gathering at the Joy News 100 Days Town Hall meeting at the Law Court Complex in Accra Monday. Among a tall list of what the government has done to improve the economy, Dr. Bawumia also stated that in terms of security, his government would ensure that anyone who flouted the law is dealt with.
Very forthright in his condemnation, and we've all agreed to that. I mean, that if there's any behavior that breaks the law, it doesn't matter which party you belong to. It doesn't matter whether you are NPP or NDC. The law is the law, and the law will be enforced. You will not see Nana Akufo-Addo releasing someone who has been jailed because he's an NPP volunteer. No, the message that he has sent as a result of the arrest and remand fining of these people who broke the law is a clear message to the country that regardless of your political party, you cannot hide behind the cover that I'm an NPP member so I can break the law with impunity. No, if you break the law, you will be dealt with. You are not going to see ministers lining up to sign petitions to ask him to release them, or he will not release them in any case. So for us, it's a different thing. You know, if you say you belong to the NPP, or if you belong to the NPP and you misbehave, the law is going to deal with you. And that message, I'm sure, will get through.
Does it not create a difficulty, however, that leading members of your party, you know, the regional chairman for the Ashanti region, your stronghold, one of the biggest financiers and a member of parliament, have all openly supported the criminal acts of these people?
I've not seen open support of criminal acts, but what I will tell you is that everybody's free to make whatever statements they want. But the law, if you fall foul of the law is going to work.
Let me come back to the issue of security, because I think it's at the heart of most of the achievements you talked about. I think the bigger issue for me is sustainability of all the good things you've started. And it comes back to how to create a right environment that attracts the kind of investment and the kind of businesses that are required for development and for growth. And I think in that regard, I want to come back to the issue of not just the vigilante groups, but we've seen Abu Glushi, the street pony. I think it's a reflection of a broader issue of a culture of violence. And what I want to know is, what is the plan, the strategy for violence prevention? You talked about rule of law, but I think rule of law is very reactive. But how do we look at, it's important though, but then how do we begin to build preventive strategies? We have National Peace Council. How are we strengthening the National Peace Council? How are we looking at other stakeholders and other frameworks for violence prevention?
That the issue of violence is very, very important, as was raised by Sister from Wanep. I think violence usually arises when you have disputes. And how we prevent those disputes from coming up in the first place will have to be very, very important. I think we have to engage all the stakeholders, the chiefs, and the queen mothers, the various people in all areas in discussing issues before they get into aspects of violence to be used to resolve matters. I think that a lot more discussion of issues on the ground, whether it's in Abu Glushi, because there are apparently issues that were already simmering, and we could have probably addressed them a bit earlier than allow it to then erupt into violence, and then we are now trying to resolve it. So I think that having early warning systems to actually say that there is a problem here, there is a tension here, if we don't address it early enough, it could result in violence. I think that that sort of intelligence we need assistance of our security agencies to give us that sort of intelligence. Because if you start addressing potential disputes early enough in terms of talking and discussion, whether the Peace Council is engaging or the House of Chiefs is engaging, depending on which bodies, to resolve the issue, we could get a lot more prevention of violence than what we are getting at the moment. I think we need a lot more intelligence on the potential hotspots and engage in these, because the cost of dealing with these violent situations is much, much more.
Obviously, issues of violence have dominated discussions within the 100 days of the NPP's administration, from seizures of public property to attacks by pro-government groups, Delta and Invisible Forces. But did Dr. Bawumia address the security issues adequately? Well, I'm joined in the studio now by the Executive Director of WANEP, Lavinia Adai-Mensah. First of all, your impressions. You were there yesterday for a time with the Vice President, 100 days of the Akufo-Addo-led administration. Your impressions of his delivery and, the whole show.
Well, I think for me, he did make some, claims of achievements. And I think, granted, it's important to recognize that, yes, something has been done, some things have been done. But I think from where I was coming from and leading to, the question that I had raised was that my expectation was that 103 achievements and none of it touched on security. I think the closest we came to was when he talked about the fund that has been created for human trafficking, and then also talked about peacekeeping and what has been done in terms of peacekeeping. But in terms of internal security, there was absolutely nothing that I picked from his achievements, and that's where I thought it was a bit of a concern for me.
Okay, so we saw you ask that question in the clip we just showed. Was your question answered satisfactorily? Were you satisfied with the answer you got?
I think he provided aspects of what needs to be done in terms of looking at how to address the issue of violence. But I think he was leaning more towards conflict, and the question was more about dealing with a culture of violence, which goes beyond conflicts. Because when you talk about conflicts, then the focus tends to be on actual conflict situations rather than violent situations that leads us very quickly to issues of chaos. And so he touched on aspects of it. He mentioned early warning, which is important. But again, what is early warning? I think the focus was on intelligence. From where I stand, and in terms of the analysis that we do, one of the things that we've realized is that the intelligence seems to be challenging. Otherwise, why did Abu Blushi happen the way it happened? So I think it's not about just intelligence, but it's about having a broader framework. What is the national architecture for peace? We are talking about infrastructures for peace. We have the National Peace Council, as I mentioned yesterday, but then the National Peace Council is just one level of it. How do you cascade, security issues beyond the security agencies? They're not the only stakeholders at stake. You need to engage at the various tracks, multiple tracks, state level. That's where he seemed to focus on. Beyond state level, how do we deal with civil society? How do we deal with community level? So I think those were the things that we're looking for. And I think there's a lot of goodwill, there's a lot of realization that a lot of the violence that is happening now, being done in the name of political parties, everybody realizes that, look, it's more about criminal violence rather than any real political affiliations. Of course, politics become an opportunity for people to hang on, to legitimize what they're trying to do. So the question is that, given that everybody realizes this, how do we take advantage of this period to begin to really develop a national architecture infrastructure for peace that looks at all the various levels beyond just what the state does?
Before I come to ask you about suggestions for that architecture, let's talk about priorities. You sat throughout that whole presentation. Do you think that security was a priority for Dr. Bawumia?
Well, since it did not feature in the 103, it may be a priority, but definitely it was not in the 103. And I think for me, it's more of, let's see, what is the plan? And raising that question was also to ensure that if it is indeed on the plan, it continues to remain on the plan, and that it becomes a more consultative process of how do we get different people to help to develop this infrastructure we're talking about.
And what did you expect I mean, as you went to sit there 100 days, obviously you've spoken to us about security, but obviously because you're executive director of ONEP, I'm sure you're
the deputy
executive director. Thank you for ONEP. What else did you expect that did not feature in the whole presentation? Were you've spoken about how you're not satisfied with the security angle, but let's look at the whole presentation. Were you satisfied? Was there something else that you expected that was not addressed?
Well, to be honest, it's just 100 days we're talking about. So in 100 days, for me, what is more important is sustainable impact. And in 100 days, it's difficult to get anything that you can claim is sustainable. So in terms of that, my focus is more on sustainability of effort. So for me, it was to see what is on the agenda, what are you working on, what are your priorities that you're working on that we're hoping to build sustainability into. And from that angle, as I said, those priorities, security was not there. But of course, there were other important aspects. Of course, the issue of women and children also seemed to be absent. And so the concern still remains in terms of what is the strategy moving forward.
But he did mention about having a home for adults who were suffering domestic violence and people who were trafficked. But I'm sure it didn't stand out too well for you in terms of the achievement with women and children affairs. So, Lavina, let's talk on building that framework. You mentioned that he was only focusing on the state level, but you wanted us to come down to communities, even for me, down to families. As Deputy Executive Director of ONEP, what do you think we should do in putting this framework together and making sure we see results in dealing with the culture of violence and not in conflict alone?
As I said, consultations are very important. I think we need to have some kind of a national consultation on addressing this and breaking, the political lines that have been sort of created around violence. I think we need to deal with it as a nation, consultative processes to begin to identify what are the core issues that we're dealing with here. Who are the key stakeholders that we can engage with? What are the kind of strategies that we need to adopt? How do we use what we in terms of ECOWAS and what the frameworks for ECOWAS peace and security is, and feed it into a national strategy? So I think we need to look at all those levels and identify the stakeholders, and then begin to engage in strategizing from short term to long term. Peace education, for instance. How are we bringing in the education sector? It's not for just one sector, but then how do we do a cross-sector approach? Education, youth, women, youth and sports, women and children, of course, interior, defense, all those come in, even at the state level. And then again, as I said, a plethora of civil society organizations dealing with these aspects from different angles, be it from development, or be it from technological perspective. They are all implications, they all have security implications. So how do we bring all these stakeholders from the various angles and begin to look at these from a comprehensive point of view?
And so, Lavina, moving forward, when we have these consultations, people sometimes when you get down to where these, violent attacks usually happen, they tell you people sit on TV and you speak big, English. You don't come down to know what the heart of the problem really is. So once we've done the consultations, once we've involved all the stakeholders, how do we get down to the bottom of the problem?
Well, the consultations, by the way, are not exclusive to those perceived to be at the top. I'm talking about consultations that cut across the various social strata. So it's not just at the top, consultations at the community level, with the community level, consultations at the middle level, and then also at the state level. So it's a multi-stakeholder consultations I'm talking about, not exclusively designed by, elitists in the sense, and then, transported to communities.
All right.
That's not what we're looking
Lavina,
at.
I'll come back to you, ma'am. But yesterday we also saw the opinion of some others who were at that program. Let's watch this.
My name is Bright Adofo.
Okay, what was the question you wanted to ask, or did you get answers to them already?
Please, I just wanted to make a special appeal to him. Actually, I'm a student of University of Cape Coast College of Distance Education, and I'm the immediate past regional secretary. One of our challenges has been our education students. being posted by Ministry of Education, and for that matter, government as a whole. When they complete a program with all their experience, with all their qualification, the government don't consider them, posting them. So we want to make a special appeal to the government that even as they are doing for the training colleges and the rest, they should have, we want a permanent quota, or even if not, permanent posting and employment, like how our fellow training college used to get. Thank you. That's what I wanted to ask him, to tell him.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that in due course, perhaps some way, somehow, we can get the ministers to get you some answers. But I have Adam Abdul Wahab, communication and media relations officer with the GFT. You have some questions?
Yes. I'm not Adam. My name is Larry.
Okay, you are Adam, I believe. Okay, so you just still stay with us because we can still have some time for you. You wanted to ask the Vice President some questions. What are they?
Yes, I wanted to ask the Vice President 2 questions. The first question I wanted to ask him was about, there have been some level of discriminations against persons with disability in all sectors of lives. So I wanted to find out from the Vice President what are some of the plans they are putting in place to deal with some of these discriminations. Example is like the program is going on, we have our brothers who are deaf. How do they assess that program? Persons with disability have issues at the law court, and at the end of the day, the case ends not in their favor. But when you analyze it, you could actually have a hope that for this case, there is an opportunity for the persons with disability. The second question I wanted to ask about access to public services by all citizens. If you look at some institutions in Ghana, very good example is the passport office. Persons with all kind of persons go there, including persons with disability, to access passport. They go. People spend number of days, months, weeks, and they are not able to get their passport. I wanted to find out what the Vice President and the NPP government is putting in place to minimize this stress on the citizens.
And you can trust us, since you said this on Joy News, both on TV and on radio, that you will hear, you will help some people in authority hear you. And
on the banking sector, the issue of now all this money is going to Bank of Ghana is very good. The only issue is Bank of Ghana only has 7 offices in 7 locations in the country. So I think that one will have to be looked at carefully. And also on the DKM issue, we shouldn't add companies like God is Love, because that is not a microfinance. That was simply a club, a friendly club, and therefore they don't come under regulation as DKM was. So those are some of the issues that needs to be looked at.
Were you impressed with the answers given to the questions that were put to the Vice President today?
Very, very impressed. And what he shared, the 103 achievements, were very commendable. So we encourage them to do more.
My question, however, was on the disposal of plastic in the country. They are dealing very well with Galamsey, but I believe that if we don't deal with the plastic issue, it will become the next challenge we have to confront as we are dealing with Galamsey. So we need to have a program in place quickly to ensure that we clean up as we use plastic.
Before the budget, they were claiming that the government was not having the fiscal space to be able to implement a lot of the policy. But recently we had an information that the Ghana revenue has made significant improvement when it comes to its first quarter. And the second mechanism the government was putting in place was about the leakages, trying to do away with the leakages. And currently the finance minister was telling us that almost 5,000 ghost names have been removed from the payroll, or have been cleared from the payroll. So I was thinking that per all this massive improvement in our expenditure, I was thinking that will the government do away with the IMF bailout?
So those were some views shared at that particular program. And let me come back to you, Levena Dimensa. What will be your score for this government in the first 100 days? I know you've said it's early days, but I mean, they have touted 103 achievements in 100 days. So obviously, I'm sure they have assessed themselves in a way. So what will be your score for the government first 100 days?
To be honest, I'm not at the point of assessment because I think, you know, a lot of things are still in transition. We're still moving on and we're not yet at really results level. And so it becomes difficult to do any assessment. You know, they've assessed themselves 1 achievement
per day.
So that's 100%.
And even plus more.
Plus more. But I think from where I said, I think it's still, I insist that it's still early days. I think we still need to see, you know, what's the way forward? Are we moving forward? How are we building on sustainable change? I think that's what is most important for me.
Finally, before you go, Ma'am, as ONEP, what are your impressions about how we are handling the two most topical issues in this country now? If I'm safe to say that Galamsey, because something that's a potential, you know, conflict awaiting to happen depending on how it's managed, and the recent attacks in Agbogbloshie. Just your final thoughts in wrapping up.
From a practitioner's point of view, I mean, the Galamsey thing is already, there's a conflict. You know, conflict is not necessarily when the guns are all out. You know, there's already a conflict situation that we're dealing with. And I go back to the importance of multi-stakeholder consultations and dialogue. You know, I think, yes, you can use force to address some issues, you can use rule of law to address some issues, but I think the bigger issues, the simmering issues, I think usually needs dialogue. And that's from our perspective as ONEP, what has worked and tends to bring about sustainability. So I think for me, that space for dialogue needs to be created as soon as possible.
So are you satisfied with the way the Galamsey issue has been handled now?
There's a lot more that needs to be done.
Like?
I've just talked about opening the space for dialogue, you know, rather than working in silos and trying to address the problem. I think, you know, that we have to be honest and say that, yeah, well, there is some level of dialogue going on at different levels, but I think that space needs to be broadened to include more stakeholders.
Thank you very much for your time, Levena Dimensa. She's Deputy Executive Director of the West African Network for Peace Building ONEP. But we've been talking about security issues and the Akufo-Addo government's first 100 days in office. You're watching Joy News Desk. We'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll be talking about more issues here. Please stay with us. This is Joy News Desk with me, Bernice Abubedo. I'll bring you more reactions on Akufo-Addo's government first 100 days in office. But let's turn our attention to some really terrible news coming in. 2 persons, including a 5-year-old girl, have been shot in a community near Tripoli in the northern region. The incident occurred at dawn on Friday when some persons believed to be Bimobas, but also Togolese nationals, invaded 7 communities and attacked residents, setting over 100 houses ablaze. The police say they are yet to establish the reasons for the attack. ASP Mohammed Tanko speaks for the police in the northern region, and he joins us live on the phone with some details. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Now, the MP for the area has disputed your report that the attackers are Togolese nationals. What information have you been able to gather now?
Yeah, I didn't get your question.
I'm saying that the MP for the area is disputing your report that the attackers on the people who attacked these 7 communities are Togolese nationals. What information have you been able to gather since the attack and now?
Yeah, thank you once again. Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. I think the MP for the area is totally wrong in disputing it because our investigations established that about 3 weeks ago, some Bimobes who are Togolese came to the area and threatened that or initially reported that their livestock had been stolen, and they were suspecting that it was the Chukwusis in Ghana who had stolen them. And if they didn't find them, they would teach them a lesson. So a few weeks afterwards, these attacks happened. Our intelligence indicates that it is the people from Togo who initially attacked the Chukwusis. So after the attack, then the Chukwusis also organized themselves and attacked the Bimobes who are Ghanaians. So that is what our investigation so far has established. But investigations are still ongoing. It is likely maybe after further investigations, some one or two things might change. But the difficulty that we have as of now is we've not been able to get the Bimobes, that is the Ghanaian Bimobes, because most of them, or all of them, have fled the area, and it's becoming very difficult to get them. And we are trying very much to get them. And when we know, after getting them, we'll be able to get something further as far as the investigation is concerned.
Okay, ASP Tanko, have you been able to make any arrests so far?
No, so far we've not been able to make any arrests. But, some suspects have been identified, and those suspects identified are Togolese. Okay, and, we will not be able to ward into Togo to arrest them, as it will be a huge diplomatic mishap. So we are trying to pass it to the appropriate quarters if we can get those people to answer to the crime they committed.
So any collaboration with the police in Togo?
Yeah, this is not about collaboration with the police in Togo. We are the Northern Regional Police Command, okay? And things like this, we are not supposed to deal with our police in Togo directly, but we have to route it to Accra so that...
exactly my point, because you say these people are coming in from Togo, and so I'm thinking that the security service as a whole, the National Police Service, should have contacted by now the police in Togo to initiate their own investigation and make the arrests.
Yeah, we have indicated it to Accra, and we are very sure steps are being taken.
All right, thank you very much for your time. ASP Mohammed Tanko is the PRO of the Northern Region Police Service. And, well, we'll take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll bring you more. Please stay with us. Many thanks for staying here on Joy News Desk. The minority NDC is holding a press conference on the government's 100 days in office. My colleague Maxwell Agbagba joins us live on the phone with details. Hello, Maxwell. Tell us exactly what is happening and what the NDC is saying about this government's first 100 days in office.
Well, Dennis, as it stands right now, the press conference itself has not started, but we just had some NDC top, officers walking into the auditorium where they just come and check to see if everything is in place. So as it stands right now, the main press conference itself has not started, but you have the media taking very strategic positions, making sure that all is set so they can, give coverage to the events that will be happening. I understand from one official of the NDC that they are currently putting some finishing, touches to the main statement that will be read by the minority leader Haruna Idrisu. So as it stands right now, that process is currently underway, but the main press conference itself has not started, Bernice. But information that I'm picking from the grounds indicates that they will be speaking directly to the 100, day
103
101 days of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in office. They'll be speaking directly to some of the claims being made by the government, and especially they have some issues that have to do with basically some of the things that they stated as part of the achievement during the 100 days. Some of the things they think that are not really achievements, that they say that the government has just started the process.
Hi, Maxwell. Hello, Maxwell. Could you please reposition yourself? The line has gone bad.
Okay. Is it okay now?
Yes, it is.
Yes, so basically they have some issues. They are raising some concerns about some of the things listed as part of the achievement that the government has, some of the achievements during the 100-day period, specifically with some of the things that they listed. They think that some of them are processes, and the fact that you've initiated the first process does not mean that you've achieved that. So they are raising some questions. So it's expected that when the minority leader, I gather, will be addressing the press conference, it's expected that he'll be speaking directly to some of these issues, Bernice.
Thank you very much, Maxwell Agbagba, my colleague at that NDC press conference that's yet to begin. He tells us that the minority leader in Parliament, Haruna Idris, will address the press, and they'll be speaking directly to achievements being touted by the Akufo-Addo government after 100 days in office. Stay with us here on Joy News, because we'll be bringing you live coverage of that press conference. It's now time for business here on Joy News Desk. Emmanuel Abuajiriafi will join us shortly.
Hello, good morning and welcome to business. Now, the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana has welcomed the announcement of a reduction in the sulfur content significantly from 3,000 ppm to 50 ppm. The Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, outlined the decision for the reduction by July this year during the Town Hall public engagement to highlight achievements of the government within the first 100 days in office. The Chamber of Petroleum Consumers Ghana had earlier criticized high-level sulfur contents in imported fuels, also known as dirty fuel. But Executive Secretary of the Chamber, Duncan Amwa, said the current development is good news. I was speaking with him on the Business Live yesterday.
It is one of excitement as usual, but again, it is also one of skepticism. We have heard that kind of announcement on 3 different occasions. If you recall, when the sulfur issue came, NPA came out to say, oh, it was going to move from 3,000 to 500 ppm by January. We pressed further. They said they were going to do 50 ppm by same January. Second announcement. Third announcement, we missed January deadline. Then we are told, oh, by April, Ghana would move to 50 ppm. Ghanaians continue to wait. And then we get towards April, and then we are told July. We are excited that the presidency has taken note and is also committed to ensuring that Ghanaians get cleaner fuel in order to be able to go about their day-to-day operations. As it is today, the sulfur content continues to be a problem, and we are hoping that July would be July and not July and another deadline comes. What it means is that significantly, you are looking at about 300%, no, about 3,000, almost, I mean, it's a huge, leap. Yeah. And the other issue we were hoping we'll be told something about is the oil refinery. In fact, it's been the impediment, it's been the issue that has been between the consumer and implementation of 50 ppm. If you ask, they tell you the refinery can do up to 1,000 ppm, which is much higher than the 50 we are asking for. And if the refinery can only do up to 1,000 and it has not been retooled, it has not been provided with a desulfurization plant, then one will be asking, are we really sure we'll be able to achieve the July deadline we are setting?
Meanwhile, the Vice President also touted as a key economic achievement in his first 100 days, that's the government's first 100 days, the recently issued $2.25 billion bond and how it has improved not only the profile of the public debt, Some financial players and former Deputy Finance Minister Ato Forson criticized the move, citing government's failure to spread the risk. A chunk of the bond was bought by US-based institutional investor Franklin Templeton. But according to Dr. Bawumia, the move has also shored up the country's foreign reserves from $6 to $8 billion, thereby boosting the cedi's value in the last few days. For economist Courage Mate, this is a rather quick turnaround in the exchange rate dynamics, which is timely for economic growth.
This particular government came into power at the time when the exchange rate had suffered a relapse. It was stable in the 10 months of last year or so, 11 months of last year, but towards the end of the year to the election period, suffered a relapse and started depreciating fast, and that continued into this year. And that was a difficult start for this new government, and so you reckon that, look at the fundamentals and see whether the fundamentals require such a sharp depreciation, and what are the factors impacting, if not the fundamentals, the sentiments that are causing the sharp depreciation. And in that regard, you will want to think that then the government should be able to tap and draw on its goodwill that it came into power with and be able to correct sentiments to support the currency stability. And in that area, I think that the government has been able to do something, because as we speak, the cedi has recovered some of the losses it made in the early part of this year, appearing to have gotten back to where we were at the start of the year.
We'll bring you more analysis on the Vice President's submission yesterday on our subsequent bulletins. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. That's it for business.
Thanks for staying here on Joy News Desk. It's now time to talk sports. And yes, over the weekend, a lot of interesting things happened there. And well, why are you smiling like that? Because you're a Manchester United fan. And
no, you said interesting. I also
of course, they were interesting.
Okay.
When they?
Very interesting to see Manchester United beat Chelsea and resurrect from their normal 5th to 5th. It was a
resurrection weekend, wasn't it?
Sure, and Manchester had a better, but I think that game was interesting. Chelsea was just out that day when you realize that nothing is working. That was that day for Chelsea, and the little
Zlatan
boys
also didn't play, and a lot of people feel that was very confident on
Mourinho's
the part of Mourinho, in the sense that, I mean, this is his biggest striker, but he was almost like saying, I'm going to beat you with my B team.
But let's not take this from Mourinho also. He's been the manager that has given young players a lot of playing time, if you compare with all the managers in the Premier League. And he's one that, the fact that he believes in your talent, nothing stops him. And he's been able to give Rashford another era. And yes, they also didn't disappoint him. They got those 2 beautiful goals, and now Manchester United live 5th. So let's see how that
jump from 6th to 5th. And Arsenal.
It looks like this season they might just not be in the top 4 if they are not careful, because at least they're able to break that zinc. They won, yeah. But it's not looking well for them. I think that the last 4 games away from home has been difficult. This has been the first one they have won in those 5 games. So I think that it doesn't look well, especially in the dressing room, the dugout, where Azuminga is finally losing it. People he's just falling out. He won all right, but there were banners all over the place. Wenger out, Wenger out. You see, he's falling out gradually with funds and management and everything. So for Arsenal, it's shaky for me.
It's shaky. Well, we're showing you some highlights there of the game between Arsenal
and
Middlesbrough. Yeah. So, well, there you have it.
And they still struggled 2-1.
But it was a good win, 2-1. At least not
for a club that is placed 19th on the
project.
No, but for Arsenal and that pedigree they have acquired over the years, to struggle to play top 4, then you realize that this season is a big deal. For a club like Arsenal, it's always been something like their best right. Yeah.
Yes.
From Sanchez and Ozil. So you realize that it's their best right to play in top 4, but it's not looking.
Do you think Ozil is struggling in Arsenal? Because I think Ozil did better when he was with the best team, Real Madrid. I think he's struggling in Arsenal. I don't know what you think.
England, for me, is a terrain that when you come and you don't psych yourself, the media alone can break you down. Because they hype, they make their players. So if you are going to listen to what everyone is saying, you really struggle. And Ozil, I think that he's not really adapting well to the English Premier League.
It's taking a long time. How long would it take him to adapt?
That's a painful thing. We had Falcao was doing so much, or came to England and just flopped like that.
Could it be the style?
It's the style. A lot of pace, a lot of aggression. So if you are that sluggish player like Berbatov, you have the skills, all right.
But in the Spanish league, you see a lot of skillful
they are meant
play.
Yes. That is what they have. And when you go to Italy, you have to be strong. You have to be aggressive. So I think it depends on the league, and you have to know yourself also. England is attractive, but when you come there, you're not careful, you just fall out.
But you're a Manchester United fan, so you're very happy.
Oh, I'm happy.
I
but
saw a lot of people teasing on social media, and the Chelsea fans couldn't just get over it. They're like, how could you do this?
It's a big deal because it's Mourinho who has been to Chelsea before, won a lot of laurels with them, and then you get them saying that we are playing with the old men, and this old man you are talking about is on the bench, and the kids are beating you. So for United fans, it's a big deal for them, not really because they want to make the top four. United are banking on the Europa League to make it to Champions League next season. So for top four, it's not really part of United's plan.
Okay, so for your sake, I think we should see highlights of this game.
Fixture with plenty of gas. Marcus Rashford with an early chance, but missed by the young Englishman. However, he wasn't going to miss again.
Rashford is beyond Louise. It is Marcus Rashford. It's 1-0 Manchester United. A finish of huge composure under substantial pressure. That is class. And the Premier League leaders are behind.
Despite making some surprise selections, including starting Zlatan Ibrahimovic on the bench, United were still causing Chelsea all sorts of problems. Ashley Young's fierce ball flashing across the goal without a red taker. Key to United's endeavour was the pace of Rashford and Jesse Lingard up front. The former nearly causing an own goal. Gary Cahill relieved to see his skewed header go agonisingly over his own goalpost. Less than 5 minutes after the restart, it was 2. Fortunate, but all that bleed Manchester Red weren't complaining.
Ashley Young for Manchester United. Herrera into the crowd and into the net! The cat is right amongst the pigeons now!
2-0 up and confident, United nearly made it 3 when Rashford found himself in some space, and while half of Old Trafford thought he'd scored, he'd only found the side netting. The last 15 minutes or so became about game management for the Red Devils, and they did that with aplomb. Chelsea finishing without a shot on target, United beating the Blues for the first time in the post-Sir Alex Ferguson era.
So there you have it, highlights of that much talked about game. And for Chelsea fans, I'm really sorry, but there was even no shot on target. It was that bad.
Very bad.
No shot on target for 90 minutes plus.
I want to liken them to Barcelona. When they are losing, they are losing. They just don't know how to draw. When they are winning, they are winning.
All right, let's move away from the English Premier League and talk
Champions League action. Return the second leg. Hey, you're happy because it's time for Real Madrid, but I'm scared.
Why?
For Real Madrid, even though you are playing about where you've not lost about 34 games in Champions League though, but Bayern Munich are not going to rest, especially when
we beat them in their home.
Lewandowski is back, and so this game looks more like, okay, there are going to be goals, but as whoever is going to score more, because Lewandowski will definitely score. That he has done in over 40 games, he scored about 38 goals. So on an average,
is that a prediction?
Scores, no, but on an average, you realize that this is someone that scores in almost every game. So definitely Bayern will have a goal. That's it. So how you also will take it there without Pepe. Let's see what Isco brings on. And unfortunately, one of your Bs is out, so it's left with Karim Benzema and Cristiano Ronaldo. Let's see what that pans out for you, because Gareth Bale is out.
So you said Bayern have 1 goal, yeah? We have 3. So it's 3-1. I still stand by my earlier prediction for the first game.
But what Atletico Madrid can do in England. They play Leicester in that return leg. They have 1 goal from Spain. So let's see how they use that. But I don't see Leicester also moving forward. So it's a no-no for Real Madrid and Leicester today for me.
Really? So so you think that Bayern would beat us?
Yeah, I'm very confident. You are playing at home, but I'm not too comfortable.
Why
for Real Madrid.
Are you not comfortable?
You see, you don't really play well with German sides, okay?
But we beat them in the first leg. What are you talking about?
You had a good day, and
no, we didn't. We had a good strategy.
Okay. So that's
Zidane is winning the Champions League.
It worked that way. That's the same way Ancelotti can also make things work away.
Is winning the Champions League.
Let's see.
Yeah.
But Juventus have the answer. We are just waiting
well,
for
that's
whoever.
on Wednesday.
We are waiting for
Barcelona.
whoever comes to the final.
On Wednesday, Barcelona will play Juventus. So we'll bring you the updates of that later. But for tonight, these are the two big games to look out for. Real Madrid versus Bayern and Leicester City versus Atletico Madrid. Well, there you have it on your screens. I can't wait. I can't wait for tomorrow because I'll be sitting here saying, I told you so.
Okay.
Because Real Madrid is winning that match. Any predictions?
I see Atletico Madrid moving ahead of Leicester. It's going to be a difficult for Atletico. Maybe 2-1 for Atletico. And then another 3-1 for Bayern.
Why you say another? They didn't win the first one.
Oh no, I don't know, but I'm not comfortable. You know, make it. This is the last stop. Seriously.
Well, let's see how it happens. But any other matches to look forward to today?
No, that's basically it for Champions League. Is big, and of course, when the Champions League, everything is just on the hold. So let's just see what pans out this evening.
All right. Thank you very much for the sports update. My name is Benis Abubedu. Thanks for joining us for News Desk today. For more news, log on to myjoyonline.com. You can also follow us on social media, on Twitter and Facebook. Our name is Joy News on TV. We have the latest news updates there. And I'll be back at 12 with more news. Up next is Joy News Interactive. See you later.